What is up, SMITE community? We have some drama on our hands. I am so excited. I live for drama. I feed off drama. I'm just kidding. I don't. I've known about the situation that's been happening with Exilium for a couple of weeks now. I've kind of kept my mouth shut. Not really my place to expose anyone or anything. But the long and short of it is, I am here to break down to you exactly how a conniving businesswoman has used legal contracts to screw up basically any relationship with the SMITE community and screw over her entire team. Basically, what happened is some SML players who were guaranteed a salary were then given additional salary by high res after SSG left the league. And for some reason, only 60% of that money actually made it into their pockets. I have not been a Chamberlain fan for a very long time. She and I got into it over the SMITE Fantasy League and how I started it along with a number of my mods and did a lot of the legal legwork in the back end. So I, for full disclosure, have never liked Chamberlain. And those of you who actually know me as a person know that I pretty much get along with everybody. So I told you so. Long story short, I'm going to break this down. During my day job, I'm in business. I deal with contracts a lot. I understand contract structure. I understand contract flow, what needs to happen first, second, third. So as soon as Kermie and the boys brought this to me, I was like, I know exactly what's going on here. I can tell you exactly what's going on here. But I really didn't think it was my place to kind of get the word out initially. She has since released a tweet longer in which she claimed that she thought this was fair and that she felt disrespected by her roster. However, many of those things don't justify you being a conniving, sly business person and using the beautiful legal language in her contracts to take advantage of a bunch of people who don't typically read contracts. Now, full disclosure, before we even get started, she was well within her legal right to do what she did. There's no recourse. There is no suing. There's no civil suit. There's nothing like that. And quite frankly, this is a good lesson in, getting somebody to read your contract. So before we even get started, and this is a big thing for all of you out there, if the terms of your employment change in any way, your contract needs to change, or you get something called an amendment to the contract, which basically says that, okay, in addition to this original legal language, here's what we're adding in. That is what should have been done during the time of this transaction. This is no fault of high reses. They do these businesses a really nice thing by giving them the money first to distribute to their players. That allows these companies to show something called revenue, right? Which makes them more attractive to investors. It makes them more attractive to, let's say somebody who's trying to apply for a visa. It's very tough to do those things if you don't have any revenue. You don't have to make profit, but having revenue says, okay, I'm a real business. So by taking the money, putting it in the hands of the business, of the org, and then distributing it to the players, it shows a revenue stream, which is very good for these companies. We want to help these orgs, especially if they're going to be good to our players and good to our scene, right? Before we get started, I need to give Chamberlain props. There have been very few SML teams over the course of the many years that I've been watching SMITE, I haven't been around that long, that have taken the time and spent the money to invest in a team, right? So we're going to break it down into the numbers here in a second. But before this whole snafu went down, if nothing else changed, if SSG was never allowed in the league, Chamberlain and Exilium had committed over $6,000 in salary through the end of their contract terms, right? So before you go getting your pitchforks, initially, they kind of had a great idea. It was really nice to see them investing in the SMITE community. There's a lot of ways you can make up that money elsewhere, but without knowing anything about how the rest of the season was going to play out, Exilium signed their players for $250 a month, which, again, was enough to cover them through the end of the season for about $62.50, I think is what the total amount was. So I have a spreadsheet here. It's probably more effective if I show that, but let's get to that right now. All right. So here's the deal. Here's everything. Here's everything top to bottom. So the thing you guys need to understand about contracts is they are forward-looking statements about the relationship of business between two parties, right? So I signed my contract, and I am guaranteed $250 as long as I play for this org through the end of December. So what Exilium owed each player for the total number of months was 5 months. They signed in August. They went all the way through to December. Was 5 months at $250 each, which comes out to $6,250. So before any of this happened, Exilium expected to lose on salary $6,250. This is because of something called a liability, which basically means that I'm going to have to pay this out by the end of this term. Chamberlain, before starting this season, was completely fine with losing $6,250 and making it up elsewhere. You can do that in merch sales, sponsorships. You can negotiate for portions of winnings with your teams. $6,250 was what she expected to lose if everything went to hell. Enter Hi-Rez. In October, SSG was removed from the league. Their remaining salary, well, they forfeited their salary, right? So their remaining salary was split between two teams, right? So it was $500 each per player for 3 months. So that total amount coming from Hi-Rez was $7,500. Okay? During this time, Hi-Rez said, okay, guys, everybody, you got to sign this paper. It says it's $500 a month for these 3 months. It's going to go to your org, and then it's going to go to you. At that time, what should have happened is every single one of those players should have asked for an amendment to their contract before signing that waiver, which said, due to an additional distribution, X amount of money, or the new player salary is X amount of money, right? Hi-Rez gives this money to the orgs under the expectation that they will use it for salary, right? Look at the entire SPL. Look at all of the SML, right? Nobody has taken a single cent out of player salary and lined their own pockets with it, right? And if you read Chamberlain's tweet longer, I didn't really get to see much of it before she deleted her Twitter. But there was a lot of language in there about what they felt was fair and how they felt wronged by their roster. Okay? I guarantee you that knowing what contracts she had in place, what she was obligated to do, she did not bring up the mention of actually paying them the salary money. She knew what she was doing, and it has to do with the way that these numbers work out. Okay? She did give one incremental payment, 1 month, which was the month of October, where she paid each player a $500 salary. This came out to $2,500, right? And which, is how much they expected to make from October, November, December. There were no incremental payments after that. So now as you start to look at these numbers, they kind of look a little fishy, right? Because if you look, in October, Kane gets a check for $7,500, or maybe it was 3 checks at $2,500, right? And during the first month, gives them out $1,250. And I don't know if she realized it right there, or if she realized it in November and December that she didn't have to pay them. But basically, if you look at her total liability, which is $6,250 plus the additional $1,250, it comes out to exactly the amount of money that Hi-Rez gave them for their salary for 3 months. So when you start to do the math on this and you think of her as a terrible business person, she basically didn't make any money in the SMITE scene and used the $7,500 that was meant to go to the players as a way to cover her costs for the entire year. Now, this doesn't count all the Exilium party money that she pocketed or anything else that she's done throughout the year to try and make money. Now, I'm not faulting her for that. Orgs are in the business of making money. However, I don't really think that ethically you can really go to sleep at night looking at this sheet and saying, oh, okay, I didn't cover my costs for the year. I expected to lose $6,000 in the first place. So I'm going to use this player salary, fuck them over on their contracts, and then I'm going to use that to cover my sunk cost and cover my expenses for the entire year. So she walked away net zero. She did it by stealing the SML players' money by the use of legal contracts. And again, this gets down into a couple of very important things. One, have somebody read your contracts. If you need me to read your contracts, I will do it. It takes me 5 minutes most of the time. I did it for a lot of the SPL players. I'm more than happy to. Two, anytime the terms of your employment change, this doesn't matter if you work as a garbage man or as an SML player. If the terms of your employment change, get it in writing. If you go from $12 an hour to $15, get it in writing. Because as you can see, anytime a shitty business has the opportunity of taking advantage of you, they're going to do it. Long story short, again, I am not a fan of Caberlin to begin with, so this is a little bit biased. But as you can see, she has deleted her Twitter long before this ever happened. They said they were leaving SMITE and it wasn't a good investment for them. Clearly not. But she, again, is completely within her legal right to do this because no contracts were amended. Now, we get down to the last point, which is actually a pretty significant business point because everybody likes to lean on businesses, abiding by legal contracts only where they can help it. That most of the time offers for protection. In this case, it was predatory. But there's a difference between doing the right thing at the right time, regardless of legal language, and doing what is legally obligated of you, which is why you can see the fallout. People have now left. Well, they left her league a long time ago. But the other thing that you start to notice is this a very typical pattern of Kane? Kane likes to punish people who she doesn't like or doesn't like what they do by treating them like a parent. So in her mind, she felt that this was justified because she was wronged in some way. Again, according to her TwitLonger. But that doesn't make you not a shitty person if you abide by legal contract language. So I hope this video was helpful for all of you in understanding exactly what's going on. Again, this is the fault of the players for not getting somebody to look at their contract or understand their contract situation. This is the fault of the org for not doing the right thing and using money that was meant to go to salary for their own benefit to cover their costs. It was never the intention to use that money that way. It was never used that way for any other team. But because of the legal hurdle with the contracting, it allowed for an opportunity for her to walk away, losing nothing. And she took it because she doesn't like this community anymore. In my mind, good riddance. This will allow for other good orgs to jump in and join the scene, hopefully. And I think we're all better off without her. So hope you liked the video. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Let me know on Twitter. And yeah, I will see you guys the next time somebody decides to do something stupid.